Mine's tonight. Play for over.
Depends. Will your friend, the footballer, be there?
Oh, friend, football friend.
Oh, what a superb goal. Stefan Moore, that is extraordinary from Ben Garuccio.
You're listening to episode 17 of Football Friends with Ben and Stef. Coming up, we recap arguably the craziest round of A-League men's football all season. And yes, Stef tells us all about that penalty. Plus, we hear the boys' thoughts on all the recent referee talk, what can be done between officials, players and supporters to squash any potential stigmas. And one of our most requested guests yet, the Candyman, Joe Lolley, joins us as he tells all about his career and time down under thus far. All that and more coming up on Football Friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Football Friends with Ben and Stef. Episode 17. We're getting a lot of guests on. Obviously, a lot to talk about this week on the field. What happened after the final whistle, and we've got Joe Lolley as well, which is a pretty big get. Lots of fans from the UK sending in questions, so we're excited to chat to him. But first, I guess we'll go through our A-League recap. And you didn't want to make the trip over to Wellington. You lost your passport. What happened there?
Nah, just a little bit of tightness in the hammy. And yeah, sat that one out, unfortunately, it's always shit, but hopefully, it's nothing too bad and get myself right. Trained over the weekend, so it's feeling good and hopefully be available for this week. But I suppose the real news to talk about, Steph, is the first game of the round. Adelaide versus Perth, 3-3, absolute thriller, and you were amongst it.
Yes, it was exactly how you don't want it to play out. 2-0 up for the lads, flying, cop a goal off a set piece. Then we cop another. I think the second one was maybe off a set piece as well. A ball on the edge of the box. Then go 3-2 behind. And then the big man steps up to take the penalty and he misses. And it was an absolute disaster. And honestly, it's crazy. I obviously wanted it. I thought, yeah, give it here. I was done. I was so dead out about 65 minutes, 70 minutes. But then I was like, I'm good. I want to take this. Obviously, I said to Hero, no, I got it. And
was there a bit of handbag?
Not handbags. He obviously wanted it. I said, no, I want it as well. And if he really wanted to push for it, at the end of the day, I'm old enough and ugly enough and I'll put my hand up to take it. If I miss, I miss. That's just the reality of it. And if he really wanted it, I would have also given it to him. I'm not going to start a fight over it, but it's one of those ones. If the ball fell in my hands, I was closest to it. And I thought, oh, perfect. I'll take this one. And yeah, you miss at the end of the day. It's one of those ones. And, I saw or didn't know at the time, but obviously I was assuming that they would have only looked at Hiroshi, they would have looked at Zach Clark for penalties to know, okay, what do they take penalties like? But I didn't see that. I think one of the Perth players ran over to the bench when there was the VAR looking into it. And obviously the goalkeeper coach told him probably, he's taken penalties this way. So in my head, I thought, this is my safe side. I've taken, a few in junior national teams. I've taken a few in, Japan and when I was in the A-League before, and I've actually never missed one in a proper game. And I thought, what, this is my safe side. He won't know I'm going there, and I'll just put it in the bottom corner because he stayed central for the first one. So I was worried if I went down the middle, if he stays again, I was like, but if I knew, and then Huge Galekovic told me afterwards, he saw that happening and he wanted to tell me, but at the same time, he didn't want to tell me because it could have made me kind of, I guess, question myself. In hindsight, of course, if I knew that he knew that, I would have put it the other side. But that's just the way it goes. Sometimes you score, sometimes you miss. And you know what? There's worse penalties that go in sometimes. If the keeper goes the wrong way, it's a brilliant penalty. But if he goes the right way, you need to hit it pretty well. And I obviously didn't put enough pepper on it. And I was fortunate that the young boys, Bobolina wins the first header and Panna flicks it on and they call it a goal and we get the draw in the end anyway. So it's not the end of the world, but I think it was a good reaction from us after the last game, but it's just disappointing again to concede so many goals. And something we spoke about a lot this week is, if we want to win games, we can't be conceding those goals. So defensively, we're working on that. And it's not just the back line and the goalkeeper, it's obviously the whole team. But, I was pretty happy to run out 90 minutes after not really training too much and not playing any games for 3 months. So that was a positive note if you want to look at it in a bad outcome anyway. But yeah, it was it's like, you have those games. It is what it is. If the only problem, I think, is if you shy away from it and you don't want to put your hand up to take another penalty, or you get another chance in a game and you're too scared, then you're going to miss chances, you're going to miss penalties. We saw Patrick Wood get the absolute miss of the season, and sometimes it just happens. Like it when you look at it, you think, fucking hell, this guy, what an idiot. But like, we've all been there, and you miss chances, and it's only really about if you keep kind of, getting into the positions and constantly missing them, then there's obviously a big problem because you need to work on your finishing. But it's more so if you get scared and you don't want to take the shots, that's when I think you're actually in the shitter on the field, because that's a bad place to be for an attacking player. But that's enough of me, enough of the Reds. I'm going to your boys, and you missed the game. Wellington, quite comfortably got the result. You obviously had quite a few changes in the team, but still, disappointing to keep losing and to not get the 3 points which you lads desperately need.
Yeah, I think off the back of a pretty busy schedule for Wellington, it was kind of a bit of an eggshell kind of game, or banana peel kind of game, whatever you want to call it for them. But I think when, we did have quite a few changes to the starting 11, and to concede a goal so early is a bit disappointing. For me, I was on the other end because I'm not playing in the game, so I had a bit of a clearer view. I was probably a bit more level-headed than I usually would be when I'm out on the field. But it was just, I suppose, disappointing to concede that early, I suppose, in a game like that where, they need a win and they're in a good moment at this present time. And I think to keep that game 0-0 for as long as possible would have been really important, and then hopefully had the legs to run over them in the end. But yeah, I think we just, it wasn't one of our better games of the season. And yeah, they scored that first goal, and then they score another goal right at the start of the second half. And it's always a tough place to go to Wellington, but to kind of concede a goal that early and then get another one so early in the second half, it's always going to make life tough. And I suppose now we've got a game Friday night, and then we play again on Tuesday against Victory, and then we play again on the following Saturday. So we've got a few games now that we can really look forward to and hopefully start putting some results together, because it's what we need. But we'll go on to the next game, which was Victory versus MacArthur, and their unbeaten run is officially over. It was a pretty crazy game. I don't know if you saw it, but pretty crazy game. Obviously, MacArthur get the goal, and Victory had so many chances. On another day, I think Bruno Fonioli would have scored 3 or 4 goals, missed a penalty, which was, disappointing.
Big players missing penalties.
Big players missing penalties this week. He's not the first,
and he went down the middle.
And
he went down the middle, and Curtis, like, people can say, oh, fucking what an idiot, why would you go down the middle? But, realistically, you got 3 chances with a penalty. You can go left, central, or the right. Of course, you can fucking lace it. You can use the side foot. You can try and dink it down the middle. But realistically, you've got 3 places you can go with the penalty. And Curtis, obviously, he's taken the gamble. He stayed there, and he looks like a hero. On another day, he dives, and Bruno scored that equaliser. But yeah, like you said, it was a pretty exciting game, I thought. And MacArthur, the way they play, they had a few, like, De Villa wasn't playing in that game, I'm pretty sure, and they made quite a few changes. But the way they play is very solid. They obviously try and catch you on the counter, which they did. They went 1-0 up, and I don't want to talk about Arsenal all the time, but they won 6-0 on the weekend against West Ham, and they were saying during the game, Arsenal, when they played them at home and lost 2-0, they had more shots on target, and West Ham had less shots on target, and they lost 2-0 in that first fixture. So, 3-4 months later, Arsenal wins 6-0, and everyone's saying, oh, how good the performance was. But the performance in the first game was the same, and that's sometimes what can happen in football. Like, like you said, another day, Victory score 5 goals, and everyone's saying, fuck, Victory are unbelievable. They're on on fire. MacArthur are having one. But if you don't score your goals and going into the next game, talking about goals, Brisbane Roar 5-1. I actually didn't see this one live, but I was out at dinner because got to sometimes, take a break from football. And I'm getting the updates. Like I was actually going to meet Zach Clough and I'm like, what, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 4-0. I'm thinking, what's going on in this game? And again, you don't take chances or, you dominate the ball. But if the other team goes forward 4 or 5 times and score every single time, I think they hit the post as well, Truant as well, from another one in the first half. It's football's a crazy game and massive result for Brisbane. Obviously disappointing for City. Really opens the league back up. And then the last game was Sydney and Central Coast. And, Sydney come out of the gates firing. Of course, Central Coast had the travel midweek to Wellington, a little bit flat. But another crazy result, 3-1 against Central Coast. And it was top crowd, top atmosphere. But it's opened the league up, hasn't it, I guess, for the rest of the teams because of those results.
Yeah, well, it's definitely put Wellington 5 points clear on top. That was a perfect kind of weekend for them. They obviously beat us and everyone around them kind of lost. Yeah, MacArthur jump up, obviously, with that win. But, yeah, it really has. It's opened the league right up. And obviously, we spoke about Wood with the miss of the season. I think we can put that one down probably for sure as miss of the season. But Sydney got the win. That was the main thing. I think if you miss that chance and then your team goes on to lose, you're thinking, what the fuck have I done? But they got the win, which was the main thing, and they did it pretty comfortably in the end as well. But the last game was another kind of thriller, and Western Sydney's games in recent times have kind of had a little bit of everything. And even after the final whistle's done, still the entertainment keeps coming in, and 3-3 draw. Newcastle, and I think they've had a couple of those tricky games against Newcastle so far, but one man that I want to talk about is Apostolos Stamatoulopoulos. He's honestly flying this year.
Yeah, no, it's 13. I think he's equal with Bruno now, 13 goals. And I think it's one thing to score 4, 5, 6 goals or whatever, but now the run that he's on, and I think it was Stanton that came out saying in a press conference this week, saying, people told me not to sign him, but I had a feeling with this kid. Yeah. And you know what? You can feel that as a player. If you have the belief and the backing from the coach, and he's obviously, he's and I wouldn't say inexperienced, but in terms of games played, professional games played, he hasn't played a whole lot in his career, obviously. But among that group there at Newcastle, he's become a leader. He's obviously had the armband on a couple times. And he's obviously really grown into that, and he's the one for them that's really producing. And like you said, Western Sydney have had a lot to talk about. And again, they've gotten 2 red cards in this game. And I actually think it's really important because I'm one that on the field, I can't hold my emotions in. I love talking. It's just the way I play when I need to be on, whether it's a referee, opposition, my teammates. It's just how I am. And I love giving it to the referees. But for me, it's a joking thing. It's, I don't think they're a shit person. I don't want to disrespect them. The way I speak to them, I'm happy for them to speak back to me. And that's what I always try and say. And some of them like it, others don't. And they can give me a yellow. And that's something that I obviously need to work on as well. But the FA came out with a statement saying about the amount of referees that are getting turned away from the game, where everything else is going in the right direction in terms of registrations, but the match officials are going down. And I do think we need to improve them at the professional level, of course, just as we need to improve as players. But I do think it is important. We can't be hammering them too much because we need them. And also, you don't want to look like, the competition's more of a shambles than what it is. And sometimes decisions go against you. I think as a player, you'd be the same. Sometimes you're so angry at a referee, but once the game's done for me, it's done. It is what it is. They make mistakes, but we make plenty of mistakes as well. And I think, I understand as well the frustration of Rudin and the club there because they feel hard done by. I think every club feels hard done by from the referees, though, to be honest. That's just sort of the nature of the game. You always feel like you're getting the wrong end of the stick. So hopefully, we can see more people joining up to be referees and feeling safe. And that starts, I guess, probably from our level, showing the respect so it doesn't go down to the grassroots. I know I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but I think it is important.
No, I agree. I think it's always going to happen though. Like it is always going to happen on the pitch because tempers are flaring. You put your whole life into winning this game of football, and sometimes you do boil over. And that's where the referees are there to give you a yellow card or a red card if it's bad enough and if you've crossed the line. And I don't think there's really anything too wrong with that. And I don't think you'll ever see that come away from the game because it's just it's the nature of it. But I think that there does need to be, I think healthy criticism, there's nothing wrong with that. I think you can't step over that line, and it is a fine line. And it's the same with criticism of players, criticism of coaches, of administration. It's the same because there's expectation there. And I think there is also an expectation on the referees that they do get calls right. And people feel like with VAR that they've got all the tools there now that they shouldn't be getting decisions wrong. And it's still going to happen. Just like anything in life, there's always going to be mistakes. No matter what tools you've got, there's always still going to be mistakes, and people are always going to complain about something. But I think a certain level of expectation, there's nothing wrong with that. I think we have to be careful of going too far with it because, just like anything, referees shouldn't be copying personal abuse, just like players shouldn't be copying personal abuse in their Instagram DMs, because at the end of the day, once the game's done, there's nothing that's going to change the result, and there's no need for that in our game. So I think we can leave it there with our round 16 review. It was another good week of football, and we'll get on to now our guest.
Yeah, Big Joe Lolley is going to be joining us very, very soon.
Well, he's got a sweet left foot, is Joe Lolley. Joe Lolley, feeding on the scraps. The Englishman makes no mistake.
All right, guys, we've got our guest this week, and probably the first guest that we either haven't played with or aren't friends with off the park, but it's Joe Lolley. Welcome to the show.
Hi, mate. You all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you, I guess, for joining us. Thanks for being good enough. And obviously, first, as I said, first guest that we haven't played with or haven't known maybe throughout the league that much. Obviously, played against you a few times. You've given me a bath a few times already since you've been in Australia. But I guess tell us a bit about your journey, your football career, because obviously me and Stef want to learn a little bit about it, and I'm sure everyone at home listening in wants to learn a little bit about it as well. We've done a little bit of research, but obviously born in England, and you began your career in the Birmingham City Academy. Give us a little bit of a background, I suppose, about how football came about for you.
Yeah, grew up in a football family. Not, no one played professionally, but I was kicking the ball when I was 2, 3, 4 years old, and just grew up. Absolutely love the game, and playing in the garden every day, and managed to be picked up by an academy when I was pretty young, and it didn't work out in the end. I was released. It was when I was about 16, and I went through university, which is a little bit different for most footballers in England. And then sort of just by chance, I managed to get a trial at Kidderminster, who were in the 5th division at the time. They were still full time, but trial went well, and then within sort of 8-9 months, I signed in the Championship, and that was sort of the history really with Huddersfield, and it's gone on from there. So a little bit of a different route, but it's been a pretty good journey, and I'm happy I've sort of done both sides of university and living, I guess, a normal life in comparison to what it's like being a footballer.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I guess a lot of from just speaking to different players that we've had either on the podcast or junior players, Aussies that have gone over to the academies in England. Obviously that's not a normal pathway that you've done. Was it something that when you got cut from Birmingham City, did you think that was kind of the professional dream over, or did you always have aspirations to get back into it at any level?
To be honest, I think I thought it was over really. I think at that age as well, I'd had a few problems, injuries. I had a huge growth spurt around that age, and I hadn't really played for a year, so I stopped enjoying it a little. So, as soon as I come out of the academy, I had a little break, and then I just started playing with mates, and I just love that aspect of, like anyone, when you're kids, you just want to play football and playing with mates. And it sort of happened from there, really. I never really thought about playing at high levels, or, it was a bit of a pipe dream. It wasn't something I was, I guess, working towards, but it sort of fell my way a bit, really. So I was pretty lucky or fortunate in that regard. And yeah, it was a bit crazy how it all happened. Yeah, it's been a cool journey.
What were you studying at uni?
Ah, I was doing sport. I was doing sports coaching, which was, I don't know what I was going to do. I was just wasting years. But I was just trying to not work for as long as possible. So I think I was looking at like maybe PE teacher or something to do with sports, whatever the analyst people do. Things like that. That could have been me.
Fucking hell.
Sat behind a computer doing set pieces.
And now you're fucking taking them. But
Yeah.
if our maths is correct, like we did a bit of maths, and that wasn't until you were like 20 or 21, is that right? When you joined Kidderminster?
Yeah, I went on trial. It's like a month before I was 21. So I was just very late 20s. I went to Kidderminster. And yeah, that happened through chance, really. I went on trial for like the England university team. Again, through my uni, someone just put me forward randomly, and I thought, oh, why not? I'll go along. And then a coach there was a coach at Kidderminster, and yeah, he put me on for a trial, and thankfully in the first pre-season friendly I scored a hat-trick, and they signed me pretty quickly, and then yeah, within 6 months I think I signed in January for Huddersfield. So it all happened pretty super quick, to be honest. But yeah, pretty crazy 9 months of my life that was.
That's fucking crazy. That's like, yeah, to go from, because 21's pretty late. Like, as a footballer, you see people breaking through 16, 17, 18 years old. I suppose, that 20, 21 is kind of late when you compare it to most players. But that's funny, like, just people go through different pathways, and you obviously ended up there. And I suppose, how was that for you? I guess you come from playing, what did you say, 5th tier to in the champ within 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, well, before Kidderminster I was in about the 10th or 11th tier of English football. So from that season would have ended in May. So yeah, from May through to January, that 8-9 months, I went from the 10th tier to the 2nd tier. So it was a big jump in that regard, and yeah, I learned a lot about what I guess being a professional is, and all that sort of stuff, and learn a few things the hard way. And it was difficult on the body as well, to be honest, the adapting, because I'd gone from eating kebabs every night to having to train full time every day, and yeah, so it was a very different lifestyle. So yeah, it was a big learning curve, and it was just crazy, because playing with people I guess looked up to as players, and you'd watch them. I was an absolute football geek and a football nut. I knew every player in the Premiership, Championship, and all that. And then suddenly I was in the dressing room with people. It was pretty surreal.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like, I think, it's one thing, like you said, I guess, to adapt to the training, just the physical side of things, obviously the pace of the game, but that professionalism, if you're going from the 10th tier, obviously it's not professional. You're at uni, you're probably worried about just going out and getting into trouble doing that, whatever else you're doing outside of football. And then now you've got the eyes on you. You've got to be, looking at your weight, your, skin folds and all of these things. Was that something that, you said you obviously struggled with at the start, but was that something that you had even thought about before you went into that change room?
Yeah, and no, you know no better. I remember we played a game on a Saturday, and went out with my mates after the game Saturday, and we had a game on the Tuesday night, and the manager pulled me in the next day and said, "Oh, you're out. We've got a game on the Tuesday," and I was like, "Oh, is he not allowed?" I didn't even know that wasn't a thing to do. You know what I mean? I was just like, "Oh, yeah, sorry," and I got fined. I remember got fined a week's wages, and I was just a bit like, "Oh, yeah, okay, well, don't do that again." Yeah, like even little things like that. I was just so, I guess, unaware to what it was like, and I guess, yeah, what being a professional means, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it was a steep learning curve. And as you say, all this stuff like making sure you're on top of the fitness, and I picked up a lot of it, quite a few injuries early on and things like that. And the extra little gym work you do when you get a bit older, all those sort of things you learn.
You were thinking, fucking hell, get me back to Kidderminster if I can't go out on a Saturday night when I got a game on Tuesday.
Exactly. I was like, I used to score Saturday and Tuesday, a few drinks on a Saturday night as well.
Yeah, wow. Was the standard, like, obviously I know that the fifth league to the championship, it's massive, but was it something that, when you first went there, did you feel like you were out of your depth? The change of pace, obviously, of the game and the quality of players, or did you kind of fit in straight away?
I think, to be honest, because I've done really well at Kidderminster, I think I went in very high on confidence, and I don't know whether you feel like when you're younger, you may be just a bit more deluded about you don't have that fear, that mentality is quite. Yeah, so when I went in, I just used to get the ball and try and dribble past people, and I used to didn't really care, and I think I did quite well, to be honest. And I think also, I think some of the lads would say, "Oh, like you're doing well," so it always kept your confidence quite high, and so no, I never really felt out of depth, and when I come on in games, I did quite well. To be honest, still to this day, I remember I went in and I was sort of expecting to play more, and I didn't play as much as I'd have liked, and. We ended up getting drawn into a bit of a relegation battle, so I didn't play as much as I would have liked. I think he went with more experience. And then when we were safe, I started the last game of the season, and we beat Watford away, and I scored and got an assist. And I was thinking, you should have fucking played me all season.
Fucking hell.
I was just thinking, well, look how easy it is. Like, what? But obviously at the time, you're just a bit naive, a bit young, and you got that sort of fearless confidence, which I guess you quite miss as you get older.
Yeah, you don't have the time, I suppose, when you're younger. Like, you don't even think about it, the expectation, or what if I don't do well? You're just kind of in the moment, and then you're not thinking about all the other stuff. Whereas I feel like when you get a bit older, you start actually recognizing the kind of expectation from maybe the outside, like the fans and things like that, and you actually take that in a bit. Whereas when you're young, you are a bit naive. You're just like living in your own world, and you live in the dream, and you just going for it, and it's the best.
Yeah,
I
agree. I definitely agree. Envy the young lads.
Yeah. So obviously you went Huddersfield. You played, like, it's not as if you didn't play. You played obviously a lot of games at Huddersfield, but I suppose the main club during your career has been obviously Nottingham Forest, and you were there for 4 years, just like you were at Huddersfield for 4 years. But I think you played probably triple the amount of games at Forest compared to Huddersfield. And once you posted the story yesterday on the Instagram, we had Forest fans everywhere in the question box. So I have to ask you at least one question, because this question came in about 100 times, and it was, how was your time there at Forest, and what are your fondest memories in a Forest shirt?
Yeah, it was pretty great 4 or 5 years, to be honest. Like, it's such a massive club. It's just like there's two teams up in Notts County and Nottingham Forest, but obviously Nottingham Forest are the much bigger club around there, and in terms of fan base, it's very much one city, one club. So it was just to be part of that, and to have sellouts of 30,000 every week, and the fans were pretty incredible in their noise, and even when at times we struggle in the Championship a little bit, they'd still turn up and sell out the ground. So and to be able to sort of cap that off with a promotion to finish to the Premier League after so many years, that was pretty amazing. That was just great memory, and all the celebrations around that and around the city over that time was incredible.
One fan said if he doesn't say the goal against Aston Villa, then he's lying. And I looked that up, and I was like, what was it, a 5-5 draw, and you scored an absolute worldie and got 4 assists.
Yeah, that's definitely probably most memorable game. Because I grew up a massive Villa fan as well. So I've had that, that's not far from where I live, and I grew up going to Villa Park most weeks and things like that. So I had a lot of family and friends there, and I think a couple years before, the last time I played there, I broke my foot in a game, so I felt like it was a bit of redemption to go there and actually do something and enjoy the game more. And yeah, it's an amazing game and a goal and Forest. I know there's not many people who can say that, so I still mention it now to the players, to people every day. So
surely you're out after that game then.
what were we doing? Oh no, it's like a Tuesday, Wednesday night. It
Nice.
was the Tuesday, yeah. But I think it might have helped me get a new contract, so it was worth it.
Yeah, wow, that's
yeah,
incredible.
That's
And it was the 2018-19 when you got Player of the Year, if I'm correct as well. So you obviously had a really, really positive year. Was that something that you thought, after that season, could you get a move somewhere else? Was that ever kind of something that popped up and just never went through, or were you always looking to stay at Nottingham Forest kind of long term?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was so happy at Forest that I wasn't. I never once looked to move or was desperate to move. Actually, I know themselves put a bid in, and I think it was January of that season, but it got rejected in January. But I didn't ask to force to move or anything like that. And then there was a bit of interest again from Villa at the end of that season, but I think, to be honest, Forest sort of priced them out of a move. But I was sort of happy to stay. I wasn't really, it would have been really cool. It would have been probably a lot more money as well, which would have been great, because they got promoted to the Prem. But I was genuinely that happy at Forest, and I feel like when I'm happy, I'd rather just, I do. Yeah, I wasn't too fussed either way. I was sort of just, if it happens, something happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I wasn't too fussed either way. So, yeah, that was probably the closest I come. But Forest massively overvalued me. I did tell him at the time. I said, what was the point? I'm definitely not worth that much.
It works out well, I suppose, for you either way. Obviously, that would have been a dream, I suppose, to play for Villa, the team that you grew up supporting. But it worked out well either way. And when they got promoted, obviously you were there. The season after, were you coming out of contract? I suppose, how did it kind of end with Forest? Did you know that you were going to leave? Because obviously straight from there you came to Sydney.
Yeah, it was pretty disappointing actually, in that I had a year left on my contract, and I knew there were I knew the ambitions of the club. The season we got promoted, I'd started I think 11 or 12 games and come off the bench 20 games, so I was I wasn't like a starter every single game. But I felt like I could, add value, and I knew I wouldn't play those, but I sort of would have been happy to be there for a year and be around the squad and just, a bit of experience or whatever. But yeah, I remember pre-season, the manager, we'd been away to Spain for a week, and then I got back the next day and he just texted me to say, you're
done
in the under 23s, and you're in the under 23s, you're not allowed in the first team building. And considering I'd been there 5 years and played 150 games and whatever, and yeah, to not sort of just come up to me or like to ring me or just in person. We'd be away for a week in Spain. You know what it's like in football. Like, these things are quite strange. How yeah, it was really disappointing how it ended, because then suddenly I weren't even allowed to be in the first team building, and you just yeah, it was just weird, because we still had a lot of young lads who from the under 23s still training with the first team to make up the numbers, to make training better. And I was training with 15, 16-year-olds 3 times a week just to keep fit, and just because they wanted to force me out. So it was a shame how they treated me at the end, because they didn't. If they'd have just said, "Oh, you're free to go," we'd like you to leave. Obviously, keep training until you find a club. That would have just, that's football. You know what I mean? You go, "Oh yeah, no problem."
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a pretty brutal way to end it, but it led me to here, so it all worked out for the best.
Yeah, that's I think for a lot of fans listening, probably maybe there'll be some Forest fans tuning in for this, or even just Australian fans to listen to. I think, you know, as players in Australia, it's a little bit more regulated. They won't do that probably, but you know, we're treated essentially just like pawns in the game. And if you're, you know, if you're the star, if you're scoring against Villa and getting 4 assists, you're the king there. And then, you know, 6 months later, a year later, if they don't need you, it's like, well, don't worry about Joe. Send him a text and he can fuck off. You know, we're not too bothered.
Yeah.
And you know, like, I understand it's a business, and I'm sure we all do as players. We understand, but there's still that level of respect that I think you've earned, you know, just as a person, but also, you know, what you did for the club for the 4 years. You helped them get promoted, and to not be able to go out on your own terms, or at least had the decency to have a conversation, that can leave a very, very sour taste, I'm sure, in your mouth. But we won't go on too much. I guess going on to Sydney FC, how did that all come about? Because obviously, you know, you're getting promoted to the Premier League. Maybe it could have been the ambition to stay over there in England, go to another championship team, but you've ended up here in the A-League. How did that actually come about?
Yeah, well, I had the idea that I wanted to play abroad before, you know, I finished playing, and I wanted something different. I think that the Championship, you know, it's 46 games plus you know, you can play 50 plus games in a season. It can be a real grind. I think after sort of 8-9 years of doing the same thing over and over again, you know, I just wanted something that was completely fresh, that, you know, just excited me, and just something different, really. Didn't want to play in the same league and against the same and do everything over and over again. So it was completely for a new challenge. And I actually messaged Alfie Adam Lafondra on Instagram, and he's just like, do you think they'd want to, like, would be possible they'd want to sign me? And then I think within a few hours, the sporting director called, it was Adam Santo at the time, or called me, and then within sort of a few hours they were talking about trying to sign me. And then I knew Forest didn't want a fee. It was just down to the, you know, all the financial side of it, and whether it is realistic and be able to actually do it, because, you know, obviously it's never always the same money. Obviously England's, you know, financially very, very rewarding at times. So it was just about making things work. And it took a couple of weeks of negotiations, and, you know, with Forest as well, and then managed to get it over the line. But as soon as they were interested, I was pretty, and looked into it. And one of my best mates had lived here for a year, and just said it was such an amazing place to live as well. So I was sold on the idea of doing something different and new. And I think it worked out really well. And as you can tell by the fact I signed another few years, I love it here. So very happy.
And no midweek games here, so no coaches tapping you on the shoulder saying we've got the Tuesday or Wednesday game, so no going out.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? I have missed the odd midweek game. You do sometimes. When you train every single Tuesday, you're sometimes a bit like, I wouldn't mind you playing on a Tuesday, Wednesday night, and just not having to train. But yeah, we're in the Asia Cup next year, or the Champions League. Well, fingers crossed if we obviously end the season well. But so back to the odd Tuesday, Wednesday night games.
Yeah, honestly,
next year a little bit more.
We actually need more games. Like, I know it's all right, 26. I know that, you know, in the UK it's crazy with you know, 40, 50 games. That's nuts. But I think we do need to get closer to that, probably 30, 35 game mark. Like next week for us, I think we're playing Friday, Tuesday, and Saturday. Like, and as a player, you fucking love it, because it doesn't happen all the time here in Australia. Never happens. So it's actually good, because, you know, especially the way we're going at the moment for us, like, you know, the best thing is just to play games, to try and just put things right, and keep putting things right, and keep putting things right. And there's nothing worse after a shit result, and you got to train for 7 days until your next game, and, you know, the camp's it's not the same when you're not getting good results. And I think the best things in football is just to play as many games as possible, and as long as your body can hold up, which is probably a question mark for me, but we'll see.
Man. I agree. I think we played on a Thursday last year, and it was like, even Saturday to Thursday, it was exciting. It was like, it's only 5 days, like a quicker turnaround. But I think there's definitely room for, you know, hopefully another sort of some are 6, 8, 10 more games, and you can fit in the season. And obviously, the pre-season, that's the never-ending pre-seasons that we have
Yeah.
here. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't be a bad thing to fit in a few earlier games or whatever. So yeah, hopefully, obviously we've got a few more clubs joining the league, so by all accounts we've got a few more extra games next year.
Yeah, we need it. We do need it, because especially once the Prem and games in Europe start and we're here and we've been training for fucking 3 months already, and we know we've got another month and a half until we're starting, and you're watching Prem games on the weekend thinking they're already fucking playing games, or they're already like 6, 7, 8 games in, and we still haven't started our season. It's shit.
Yeah, I think by the end of September you've played about 12 games in the Championship.
Yeah,
and we haven't even started our season.
Nah.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it makes it hard as well, especially as a player, to kind of get that consistency, because everybody goes through ups and downs in the season. But you get a little injury or you're a bit sore or whatever, and you miss 2-3 games, and that's a large chunk. And then by the time you kind of get your rhythm back, sometimes you miss too much of the season. Where if you're playing 40 games, even if you miss 4 or 5 games, you've got plenty of time to kind of get back in. You're not rushing yourself. Where here it's like, if you're out, you've got to get back as quick as possible, because you don't want to miss too much. But that's something that, next year, hopefully or next season, they've got the 2 more teams in, and they keep kind of growing the league, because players want to play more, and I think fans just want to watch more games. So that's that's what we need. And I guess the last thing on, obviously, the contract extension, having lived in the UK for so long and then coming out to Bondi, what was your first impression, and do you think you'll ever be leaving Bondi now to go back to the UK?
Yeah, to be honest, it was well, it was winter here, but the fact I remember coming in, and even within the first few days it was like 20 degrees, and I was thinking, this is winter, this is incredible. I got sunburned in the winter, which is good going. But yeah, it was it's just such a beautiful place, especially coming from England, and to be able to live, near the coast and by beaches is, I've been to maybe 3 or 4 beaches in my whole time in England, and they're not since I've been about 10 years old, and they're all shit. So to be here is beautiful. And then I don't know, long term I think I could stay for a very long time, put it that way. But it's just whether my mum will kill me for saying that. I feel like my dad sort of just is resigned to the fact that he's like, I feel like you're just going to be there forever. So I don't know. We'll see in a few years. I think the longer I stay, the longer it feels like I'm not going to go home. That's how it feels. But
I did a few fucking UK winters, and I can tell you what, I don't fucking miss them. Even though Melbourne's probably not that much better, and it's not even close to Sydney, but those UK winters are a fucking killer. They're fucking depressing.
Yeah. And never ending.
Yeah,
it goes on for about 8 months as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not faint-hearted.
Yeah.
No.
Well, let's go on to some fan questions, unless you got any other questions you wanted to ask, Steph.
No, I think that's all good. Where obviously we got you this week. So hopefully you can have a bit of a quiet game against us. We desperately need the 3 points. So if you want to go out on
keep my
Thursday, Friday,
keep my double ratio up against Adelaide.
Nah, it's fine, Steph. Just make sure you don't take the penalty.
I'm 3 without a goal. I've been saving them for Adelaide.
Well, now we'll go into the fan questions. I'll go first one. We've got
go on.
At Blake Suley. What were your preconceived ideas about the A-League before you came here?
To be honest, it's not. Do you know what? I don't think I'd ever watched an A-League game, and I really didn't have any idea what I thought it was. Being honest, I thought it was going to be worse. Truthfully,
Yeah.
But I think that's just in England. That's just the expectation of like coming over here. And then I remember the first few training sessions and thinking, oh, it's actually really good players.
It's just
And then the standard actually surprises. I think the standard surprises a lot of people, especially the foreign boys that come over, and they go, "Oh, it's actually, really good players." And there's a lot of, I think it gets a lot of flack for how good a lot of the players are, and yeah. So I was surprised, to be honest.
yeah. I
Um,
think
but yeah, my preconceived ideas. I didn't really have many ideas,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I just remember being surprised in training, being like, oh, it's not going to be like just a walk in the park.
Yeah.
This is good.
I think the gap, like, even between the very best, all right, like you've got your very, very best, but I think even if you go like lower Prem, and then, Championship, League One, League Two, Australia, whatever leagues you want to say, the gap isn't as big as what people think in terms of quality. And like, as long as people, and in Australia, like the players they're very fit, they're willing to work hard, it's not going to be fucking easy, because it's not like any team's going out there and just, rolling over and letting you win. Like, it's the same with the Socceroos at the Asian Cup. Everyone, all Aussies expect that they go out and win every game 6 or 7-0. And it's like, yeah, well, you're playing a country, let's say, these countries, Asian countries, Vietnam, countries like that, where you think that you should be smashing them. But the gap is not actually as big as people think. And the difference between getting to the very top, like even for you were so close to being in the Premier League. So, and that's a massive club like Aston Villa. The gap's not as big as what people think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that it's always the small details. I do think the lads at the very, very top, like
sure.
those Man City, those
Yeah.
they're special. And then
They're
once
freaks.
you get past that level, once you drop down like the mid-table and below, obviously, then it just becomes all about like little details. They might just be a little bit sharper, a bit quicker, slightly more consistent in their like touch up, but like the differences really aren't massive.
They're minimal, yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like how people expect such like big gaps and big jumps, but yeah, it really isn't.
I think even in Australia, like you said, the flack and the stick that a lot of people in Australia give the A-League, it's just because they watch the Manchester Cities, they watch Arsenal, they watch Champions League football, so they only watch the top tier. They're not waking up at 4 a.m. Australian time to watch, a championship game, so they don't even know the standard. And it's something that I think needs to change, and hopefully eventually it will, because I've played in Holland, now just been back from Japan, and the league level is good here, and you can see it, like you said, all foreigners that come here, the first thing they always say is, oh, fucking hell, like it's a decent standard here, and you got to work hard. And you can tell the ones that come here with a bad attitude and they don't do well here versus the ones that come here and they're willing to work. And if you're a decent player, good technically, and you actually work hard, you can do very well, as you've done last year and this year especially as well. Like you can stand out, but it's not like it's you're walking out there and getting a goal and 4 assists every single week. So we're better than Aston Villa, obviously.
Yeah, clearly, exactly that. No, but it's true, and that, like, I remember, we've played some games, and they've been pretty, you like in any football league, like there's crap games, and there's been crap games, and my mates or my dad will say like, oh God, that was an awful game, but not a criticism of the league or whatever, and I'll be thinking, well, yeah, but also I remember playing like Forest or for Huddersfield, and we draw 0-0 against like Wigan away, and there'd be like 7 shots in the game, long balls, but as you say, like, no, because Championship Arts are great, it's so exciting, but well, only the fans of the teams watch the game. Pretty much none of the games are on TV.
Yeah.
You probably only got 2 or 3 games on TV, so apart from that, it's only the fans of the clubs who watch the games. So no one's judging the standard. No one's you could have the worst game in the world, but no one's watched it.
Yeah, good
so
point.
No one's there to criticize it. And
of course.
And also the fact you play games and it's 31 degrees and it's humid and people are running 11, 12 Ks and like in anything, you're going to make more mistakes when you're tired and physically it's a lot tougher here. So there's always going to be, physically and technically probably more errors when you're playing and you're blowing out your ass and you're struggling to catch your breath. So, there's a lot of factors that people don't really take into consideration as well. So, yeah, I think people are easy and quick to jump on the bandwagon. But yeah, I think, there's a lot of good players here. And I think a lot of players also have been unlucky to have never, gone on to play and bigger levels. We've got players like Caceres who, it's just incredibly technically. And, I must say, I feel like almost sorry for him that he's not had that opportunity to really, I guess, put himself on a stage where he's had the opportunity abroad and whatever. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot more talent now going over abroad, which is exciting. And it seems like there's a bit of a, it seems like it's really progressing well. All the younger boys are getting chances and opportunities, and I think that's gonna help the league as well.
Yeah, there's a lot more younger players, even from when me and Stef started, like compared to now, the chances that younger boys get now, it's crazy, and it's very good. Like, that's what we need. We need to be developing these younger players, because it's not, the end point for probably most young Aussies. They want to try and go overseas. They want to go and try and test themselves abroad, and that's what we need. We need to give them chances. But the next question is kind of just an extension of the last question, really. It's from Javi Lopez season. It's in terms of the standard of the league, how does it compare to English football? Obviously, it's not on the same level as a Prem, but how does it stack up against the Championship, League One and League Two? Obviously, you've not played in League Two. We've both not played in England, so I wouldn't really have a clue about League Two. But where would you kind of say that A-League would sit? Let's say, like your team, let's say Sydney FC, put yourselves in League One. How do you think you would fare? Obviously, you only played a few games in League One as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it's difficult because that was such a while ago. Yeah, it is difficult. I think, technically there's not huge differences in terms of like the quality of the players. I'd say whether maybe the differences is maybe just the physicality, and when you receive the ball in England, I feel like you're always getting hit. It's always, everyone's super aggressive physically. Everyone's, not that they're fitter or say quick, but they're, just feel a lot more aggressive, and you've maybe got less time on the ball at times. And but again, that can be down to things like the weather and all those sort of things, and tactically, and the game here tactically is a lot different. I feel like pretty much every team here tries to play out. England's probably Championship was a lot more varied in the way teams play. So it's physically maybe more demanding in terms of you're in a lot more duels and battles, not as much running. Like here, you do a lot of running. I think it's a lot more transition, and there can times be a lot more like open spaces. But yeah, I think I don't think it's incredibly. I think the depth's just bigger as well. Like in the Championship, you have 20 senior players all fighting for a spot, and the 8 or 9 players who aren't playing could probably play, and then there's not much difference.
Yeah.
Where here it is a bit more. You've got maybe 13, 14, 15 players, and then young lads, which maybe is also a bit of a difference.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's like what you touched on. Like the big thing is because everyone tries to play here, because there's no relegation. Everybody wants to play a certain style of football. Everybody tries to play it. So, you don't care if you concede goals from playing up from the back, because if you lose a couple games, well, eventually we'll get it right, and you don't feel the pressure. Where over there, like you said, there's teams that have, we don't have the quality of a Nottingham Forest or an Aston Villa when they're in the Championship. So we're just going to go fucking route one. We'll knock it there. We'll win the second balls, and that game just stays like that the entire game. So you're not really ever getting the chance to play. And I think it's a bad thing, because in Australia we kind of we as players don't get used to the other side of the game, because that's just as important. If you can't fucking win a battle, then sometimes, when you go overseas, you're not ready to fight like that. You think everything's going to be pretty and easy, but it's not like that. It's something that hopefully they eventually do get the promotion and relegation. And I reckon that will change things massively.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be good for the league and good for the fans as well, and just extra to plan. And
Yeah.
obviously I know Ben, you boys are struggling at the moment, but you'd be, but if there was relegation as well, it'd be even
Well,
more
of
like,
course.
imagine things aren't the best at the minute, but if the relegation, it's that extra, the motivation would be through the roof to make
Yeah.
sure that you win in the next game and things like that. And I think it just adds to everything, doesn't it? And it makes
For
Yeah.
me, the biggest difference is you're playing for your fucking livelihood. Like, whereas in Australia, as bad as it sounds, you're still playing in the A-League next year. So, and I'm not saying this because we're bottom right now, but that's just the reality of it, is that it's over there, you're playing for your fucking livelihood, because you know that when you get relegated, your wages are getting cut 25%. So you don't obviously want that, because that's your financials. That's what you can't change. So you want to be going out there and it's a fucking dogfight, and you'll do absolutely anything. If there's that 50-50 ball, you'll be fucking running straight through someone, because that's your livelihood. You don't want to fucking, the club that you're representing gets relegated. Whereas I feel like that kind of gets overlooked here in Australia, and I think that's why we need it so much more, because it gets to that stage of the season and it's like, backs against the fucking wall. We need to start getting results, and this is the only way to do it. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We'll go.
I'll go one more.
Yeah.
And then if you want to ask one more, Ben, or we can wrap it up there. But at Ash4_, this might be, I guess, maybe you've got to keep it in house if any deals are going to be getting done at the end of the season for any of your teammates. But have any of your ex-teammates from the UK showed an interest in a move to the A-League since you've obviously come down?
Well, I was speaking to one of my best mates, who I won't mention a name. Speaking to one of my best mates, and he's interested, but to be honest, he's currently playing in the Premier League, and he's still 29, 30. So, in terms of his playing career, but I think it's a lot more attractive proposition at the moment, and to be honest, the money in general in England has, since COVID, a lot of the teams have sort of reshaped and are definitely buying a lot more younger players, and the financials have definitely gone down. So, in respect of, I think, obviously the A-League have always attracted, I guess, players from abroad that have been a certain age, and I feel like that age is maybe getting a little low. I think Adelaide have brought in Tony Cliff as well, and Central Coast, the lad from Carlisle. So I do think there's probably more opportunities now for English players to look over, and I think I feel like anyone who comes over here absolutely loves it. I don't think there's many people who come over here and want to go back. I think so. Yeah, I feel like we're going to see more people, especially that sort of 28, 29, 30, 31 age group. I think we're going to start to see a lot more interest from England, which I think it will also help in terms of the standards, off the pitch and on the pitch. I think it'll be good as well, and good for younger lads.
Yeah, I think well, you're in Sydney and you love it. Imagine the boys that are in Brisbane. Yeah, Shay, obviously, Stef, you played with them when you're over there, and from everyone that says it to me says those boys fucking love it over there. And I reckon Jay O'Shea will fucking try and become the kit man after his career finishes, because he wants to do anything he can to stay in Brisbane for a bit longer.
I know. He's a 2-year deal. He's 35, 36. Yeah. He's doing very well for himself.
He's fucking flying, to be fair.
And that's the one benefit as well with less games here. It's you play two seasons here. You might only play 50 games. That's 1 year in the UK. So the toll on the body as well, even though we train a lot, it can kind of prolong your career. So hopefully we do get a few more of those late 20s, early 30s, when they've still got, like yourself, you've still got a lot to give back, not 35 and you're coming here just for a holiday. So it's, it'll be interesting to see. And we'll see. We'll see how we go, but we really appreciate you jumping on straight from training. Uffy's obviously working you boys very hard. So hopefully,
Right.
hopefully you're fatigued, very fatigued for this weekend's game. Overwork them, Woofy, and the Reds can get the 3 points.
That would be fitting fire.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We owe you.
No, thanks a lot, honestly, for jumping on, brother. I really appreciate it. And best of luck for
Appreciate
the
it.
rest of the season. Me and Steph both had you down as one of our Johnny Warren favourites for the season. So make sure you keep banging in the goals.
Cheers, lads.
Don't make us look fucking stupid and like we don't know what we're talking about.
Right. I appreciate it. I will do. Just for that reason, I will do. Cheers, boys.
All the best, bro. See you, bye.
Football Friends with Ben and Steph is proudly brought to you by the Inner Game Journals, started by none other than our co-host Stephen Moore. The Athlete Performance Journals were created to help athletes of all abilities become more self-aware through goal setting and reflection. On or off the field, the mental side of the game is so crucial to help you feel and perform at your best. Head over to www.theinnergamejournals.com and use code FOOTBALLFRIENDS to get 15% off all products. If you're a club, school or academy, you're in luck. Stefan also runs workshops and he's just released the app version, which will allow you to give direct feedback to players. Download the app for free today. Search The Inner Game on the App Store.
Another great chat. Obviously, it was a bit different, you know, when you don't actually know the person and you've obviously played against him and marked him and seen the bottom of his boots a fair bit, to be honest. And I remember early doors, I told you when you were playing him, I said, you know, fucking hell, make sure he doesn't cut inside. And I think the first game he did cut inside and score past you.
Yeah. Cut inside for
so
the
there
top
you go.
bin.
You know what he's going to do. You know what he's going to do. You can't stop it sometimes. But this week we will definitely be stopping Joe Lolley. But it was great to hear from him. I think he had a different story again, and I think it's really insightful for everyone listening to, you know, whether you've got kids or whatever it is. But you know what? He went into university with no expectation of becoming a professional footballer, and now, you know, he's living in Bondi Beach, playing for Sydney FC, been in the championship for 8 years, had a career that people would dream of. So it's never too late. And, you know, everybody's career goes in a different way. And you're the one that actually decides whether you keep progressing or whether you fall out of the system, I think, a lot of the time. So it was awesome to hear some of those stories, how Forest treated him is like dog shit. And, you know, that's something that's just, it's a business. But that's not, for me, that's not okay.
But unfortunately, it's the football world. I think it's probably not the first or last story you'll hear like that, where players have got stories like that. I actually heard one on Connor Cody speaking on a podcast recently, and he went through the same thing after being at Wolves for so many years. So it's unfortunate when things like that happen, especially for a player, because, you know, you have that connection with a football club, and, you know, you want to be going out on the terms that you kind of want, and you don't want the fans to be thinking a certain way about you as well. So it is hard in those situations, but I agree with everything you said. It was another great chat, and obviously very good of him to come on and join us. But let's get into our round 17 preview now of the A-League. We are getting through the season, and we've got tomorrow night, Western United versus Newcastle. We're back at Amy Park. We're in Melbourne. We've obviously had the very exciting news this week of the facility in Tarneet being ready to go March 17th. A-League Women's will be playing there, followed by A-League Men's and also NPL teams. So that's honestly really exciting news coming out of my football club. But we go on to Saturday, and it's Sydney FC versus Adelaide at Allianz. Hopefully you can score your penalty this time and then take the lads out to Coogee Pav, meet up with Joe Lolley and have a 0% alcohol beer after the game.
Yeah, I think we will get the 3 points there. It's my favourite away trip, my first one back with the lads. I'll probably have to be singing, which I'm not looking forward to. I think if you've been at a club before, you shouldn't have to sing it on your initiation, but the rules are the rules, and I'm not paying $500, so I'll be singing after we get the 3 points. Maybe I'll do it at the Coogee Pav for you, and I'll send you a Snapchat so you can have a listen to see if I've got a career in maybe on Australian Idol afterwards. But the big game afterwards, victory against City, the Melbourne Derby. Is that the same night that Taylor Swift's playing?
Who knows? I don't think anyone even knows that Taylor Swift's coming if the Melbourne Derby's on.
the Swifties are going to be out in force. I reckon, you know what? A few of them might just fucking, instead of going towards, where is it, the MCG, they might just do the U-turn and come straight back to Amy Park and see the Melbourne Derby, especially after what happened last year. You know, people know there's going to be fireworks and plenty of buckets. So after that, we've got
hopefully no buckets.
Perth against Brisbane, a big game. Big game for Perth. You know, they're playing at home, and Brisbane obviously after that big win, and then Sunday 2 games, which is perfect. I'll be recovering back in Adelaide after our trip. I'll be able to be on the couch watching the Mariners against Western Sydney, which will be I think that'll be a really interesting game, and Macarthur v Wellington. So both of those teams, Macarthur and Central Coast, will have played on Tuesday night their cup games. Hopefully they both get not 3 points, but both go through to the next round because it's great for Australian football. But they'll both obviously be fatigued. So interesting to see how they go, and another good and exciting round to come for A-League men's football.
No, be a top round. I think that Saturday night, the derby has to be probably game of the round, and yeah, that's going to be a massive one with City coming off the back of that result and Victory obviously losing their first of the season. But those derbies they're always fiery, so I'm sure that'll be a top game, and it's getting tight there at the top of the ladder. So even the Central Coast and Western Sydney Wanderers is going to be a massive game, and same as Macarthur versus Wellington. So we'll see who comes away with the spoils. But that's all we've got time for today, guys. If you aren't following our socials, we are at Football Friends Pod on Insta and TikTok, at Ben and Stef Pod on X, and Football Friends with Ben and Stef on YouTube. We appreciate the support, guys. Thank you for tuning in for another episode, and we'll see you next week.
See you then, guys.
Oh, Fred.
Fuck you lot, where's the beer?